Welcome to the world of high-stakes poker. A seat into our exclusive tournament costs at least $100,000, and you have VIP access to all the action. This is WPT Alpha 8. The Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino for continuing coverage of WPT Alpha 8. The game we play is Texas Hold'em, but our prestigious poker table is not just for anyone. Our players are part of an exclusive group who travel the world in search of the highest stakes games. All of our competitors started by paying the $100,000 entry fee. And while that investment seems smart for some, for others, not so much. The gentleman with an expert perspective on how to successfully play the game at this point, up in the clubwpt.com skybox, A8's noble commentators Ali Najad and Olivier Bousquet. Gentlemen?
Hey, Lynn. Thank you so much. Olivier and I are, of course, excited to be here for our continuing coverage of the first ever WPT Alpha 8 event, which drew a very interesting dichotomy of both poker veterans and very wealthy business people, all of whom have ponied up at least $100,000 to be here.
Now, during the first 6 levels, anyone with $100,000 could take a seat at the tournament, and anyone who busted could re-enter. But now we've reached the point where the field is locked in.
Basically, if you run out of chips, it's hasta la vista. At last check, we were waiting on both Daniel Alai and Daniel Perper to decide whether or not they were going to re-enter, and they have both made the decision to do so, joining Isaac Haxton as the only 3 players in the event to invest in a second bullet. Chris Klodnicki has joined the action at our feature table and tweeted, "Just registered the Alpha 8 100K at Hard Rock. Just got to beat 12 people to win. Doesn't sound too hard." Actually, Chris, it's 15 people, but who's counting? And for that matter, it is kind of hard, isn't it?
These 15 aren't slouches.
Action is underway at the feature table right now, where the blinds are at 800 and 1600. It's on options trader Daniel Perper, whose second $100,000 has produced the very robust 7-4 offsuit. Florida native Jason Mercier, he lays it down, and Isaac Haxton got a quick glimpse at him. He now lives in Malta. Seasoned pro J.C. Tran, who was a Season 5 Player of the Year, lays down. Klodnicki doesn't get a hand he likes to start things off, and it's on to Matt Glantz. The Pennsylvania native with King-Queen offsuit plays the high-stakes cash games over at the Parks Casino.
Easy open from the button here with King-Queen.
Blinds are at 8 and 1600, so Matt's raise to 3,200 is the minimum. Jeff Gross folds over to venture capitalist and energies and commodities trader Bill Perkins.
Bill Perkins with 9-8 offsuit. Pretty easy defend there to the min raise.
Flop is a 7 and a couple of 3s.
Extremely dry flop here. And Bill Perkins makes a very unorthodox and rather bizarre lead into the raiser, Matt Glantz.
What's the objective here? You think Matt's ever going to fold?
You know, maybe he thinks that without a pair, Matt will fold, but clearly just with King-Queen high, Matt is not going anywhere. And he does turn a queen, so he's definitely not folding now.
Perfect card on the turn. Bill checks, as though he was only willing to take one shot at stealing the pot.
Yeah, it's odd to give up right away.
Well, Matt checked right behind him despite hitting the queen. Is that designed to maybe induce a bluff on the river here? As
well, if it was, looks like it worked.
Yeah.
An easy call here for Matt. Bill Perkins showing a little bit of inexperience here, playing a very unorthodox line that does not work.
Not his finest moment at a poker table in that particular hand.
That was fun. What are you doing when you get here?
Well, let's get a look at the prize pool. Over $2 million collected between the 18 players. First prize is worth almost $900,000. And fourth, just shy of $250,000.
Pretty big bubble there between 4th and 5th place.
Yeah, absolutely, from 0 to a cue ball. As we send it over to the outer table, gaming executive Tom Hall is all in post-flop. He has been called by Brandon Steven. Both Joe Chong and Philip Gruesome have folded. And Tom Hall is going to roll over 8-5 suited up against Brandon Stevens' pocket 6s. Stevens got a set of 6s, and Hall has bottom pair with an open-ended straight draw. Turn card is a 10, third diamond, neither player with a flush draw. Tom is just looking for a 4 or a 9, and he cannot connect. Looking for the straight, but instead, he's headed straight for the exit.
Yeah, Tom Hall, our first player to bust out without the option of re-entering. So we're going to say goodbye to Tom.
Officially in 16th place is Tom Hall as we get back to the feature table. Action on Chris Klodnicki, graduated from Lehigh University, and he's sitting on an ace-king suited. His raises to 3,500, and it's back over to Bill Perkins with the suited connector, always tempting in No Limit.
Yeah, I like this call from Bill with 7-6 suited in position. Can hit a lot of deceptive boards and make some strong hands.
I've never been to Macau, so.
Folded around to Isaac Haxton.
35.
From the big blind with Queen 10, I can't imagine Ike folding Queen 10.
Yeah.
Isaac used that Queen 10 to flop the nut straight against Jason Mercier earlier in the event. It, of course, didn't work out as Mercier's set of nines filled up. Flop is 9-4-5. Klodnicki has swung and missed, and it's an open-ended straight draw for Bill Perkins. Nothing much for Isaac.
Chris with 2 overcards and a backdoor straight and a backdoor flush draw takes a shot here. Looks like it's not going to work as Bill puts in a raise with his open-ended straight draw. Strong raise from Bill Perkins.
Easy out for Isaac, and it's back over to Chris.
Not much Chris can do here. Bill's just shown too much aggression.
We were trying to figure out the numbers.
Another 10,000 to call.
I'm not sure what Chris is thinking. He can't really do much with just ace-king here. He could consider calling and then make a move if he gets more equity on the turn, but he does ultimately decide to fold. Well played there by Bill Perkins.
I was ready for it.
I was ready for it, says Bill, suggesting that if Chris would have come over the top, he would have made the call, which, of course, we know is unlikely to be true, but not impossible.
Hey, you never know.
Blinds and antes have gone up to 1 and 2,000, and a 300 chip ante. That, of course, reduces the value of every stack at the table and affects the shorter stacks more than the bigger ones. Chris is downgraded to 9-4 offsuit. He'll sit this one out, as will Glance. On to Jeff Gross. King 6 not good enough for him. And Bill Perkins, with a wider range than the average player, looks at Jack 9 offsuit.
In this late position, this is a pretty standard open from Bill.
Yeah, Bill has made it 4,000 to go from the hijack position, or 2 off the button.
JC never folds. JC's book was like chapter 2. Never fold the big blind.
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1?
Can't teach him the rest if you let him fold after chapter 1.
Both players here have flopped something. They both have a two-way straight draw.
Bill looking for a 7 or a queen. JC for a 5 or a 9, as Tran checked it over to Bill, who bet 5,500.
And check, bet, call is the pretty normal way for this hand to go, and that's exactly how it's gone so far. See what the turn brings.
Never fold.
22,000 and change in the pot. King of diamonds on the turn. JC again checks.
This is a card that's pretty good for Bill to keep firing on. It makes a lot of JC's calling on the flop range weaker. It looks like he is looking for another bet.
And he settles on what looks like just 8,000.
Yeah, 8,000 is a little bit small. You know, his flop bet was 5,500. 8,000 is not even twice that bet, only about a third of the pot. We'll see how JC responds to this smaller size bet.
Check raise from JC Tran with 7 high.
A very strong play here from JC. Looks like he picked up on some weakness from Bill and decided to turn his straight draw into a bluff.
Tran, 2-time World Series of Poker bracelet holder and WPT Season 5 Player of the Year, is getting called.
Yep, Bill looks like he likes his draw enough to try to see one more card.
Certainly wasn't getting the right price.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how you value implied odds. JC, now having missed his straight draw on the river, is not giving up, continuing to fire.
And a quick and easy fold from Bill Perkins and successful execution of the bluff from the stone face JC Tran. You know he's doing backflips inside.
Yeah, that was a really well-played hand from JC. Picked up on some weakness on the turn, turned his draw into a semi-bluff, missed, but had the strength to continue on the river. And since they both missed, it's really the aggressor who's going to win. And JC bets the river and takes down the pot.
I just can't get there. I was like, all right.
Action on Jeff Gross, the
Queen.
Baltimore resident, friend of Olympian Michael Phelps, originally from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Looks down at ace-king offsuit and makes it 5,200 to go.
That's the
Big
only
hand here
reason.
for Jeff with ace-king, opening under the gun, 8-handed. Wow, Jason folds ace-jack. Most players, I think, would have at least called there. Jason recognizing that Jeff opens a little bit tighter than most players, and in early position, ace-jack just doesn't play that well to Jeff's opening range.
13-5.
Claude Nicky apparently does not have that same recognition, as he has 3-bet from the small blind to a total of 13,500 with king-queen offsuit, and it's back on Jeff.
And king-queen is actually a pretty good hand to 3-bet with. It blocks certain strong hands from Jeff, makes it less likely that he has ace-king, ace-queen, kings and queens. Obviously, in this case, we see that Jeff does have ace-king. And Jeff surprisingly just calls. Chris started the hand with about 32 big blinds. It looks like the perfect opportunity for Jeff to put in another raise.
But an imperfect flop for Chris Claude Nicky. This spells disaster for him, potentially. King tray 5 rainbow, and he's betting out 12,000.
This is a horrible flop here for Chris. They've obviously both flopped a very big hand, pair of kings, with Jeff having the ace kicker.
And Jeff smooth calls.
Yeah, I think raising here would just be unnecessary. In position with ace-king, I think calling down is really the best strategy.
Well, you want to extract the maximum from your opponent, and raising gives him a chance to get out, potentially. Board pairs on the turn, and with over 55,000 in the pot, Chris Claude Nicky is coming up with a number.
17,000.
Jeff is loving the situation. He decided to slow play ace-king before the flop, hit top pair with the nut kicker, and now he's just calling down, hoping that Chris is willing to put his whole stack at risk.
And the river card doesn't change much about the hand.
Yeah, Chris has really no options here besides just moving all in. He could consider checking, but it just doesn't make sense. His hand is too strong, and there aren't many bluffs to try to induce from Jeff.
All in.
And Chris does say all in.
I think we probably could have got this over with pre-flop, but...
A little bit surprising that Jeff hasn't already called. His hand is too strong to really consider folding in this spot.
So sick. Got this monster. 28-9, right? That's annoying.
Well, he seems uncomfortable with Chris's all-in at this point, as though he's giving him credit for aces.
PCA-ish.
Yeah, that's possible, but I really can't imagine him folding.
I don't know how I can fold. I guess you have aces. Wow.
And Gross makes the call, and Claude Nicky looks a little bit confused.
That's in.
I wasn't going to fold. I was hoping you would check the river. I was going to check the hand. I really did not.
Chris a little bit frustrated that his hand was beat there, but I think well played by both players.
Can't blame Claude Nicky for having that look on his face. Late entry and early exit.
I almost folded. I swear to God.
If you had more money, you would.
Yeah, I would have probably.
This place is amazing. It's like a cheeky cabana with a pool, there's a massage table. Check out your mate back there getting a massage.
Yeah, he's having fun.
One thing that I think a lot of people are kind of fascinated about you is your sort of tie with Michael Phelps. Did you teach him how to play poker?
We actually met at a poker table, I think 9 years ago. You know, he plays for fun now and again. He's pretty good, so you know, he's not like a soft spot by any means. He's pretty solid.
So at what point did you realize you were good enough to play these events?
Well, I started playing when I was in high school, and just like any other kid, saw it on TV and got a little money online. And I was like 21, 22, and I got my first decent score. I was like, wow, this is possible. And it's just like, you know, a lot of strategy, but obviously there's luck. And like luck is when preparation meets opportunity, so you're ready for it. And then when it's your time and you do well, and you have a chance, obviously you have to get lucky also. You know, having some six-figure scores makes me feel that, you know, I belong and can play with these guys. I'm not intimidated, and I feel like I like my chances in that.
Did you see the size of Lynn's drink there? Where's that all going to go?
That requires a strong tolerance from Lynn Gilmartin.
Action at the feature table, three-way pot, which is raised to 5,200 pre-flop, and Jeff Gross has flop top pair, top kicker, but Bill Perkins has bottom two pair. Action on Jeff, who leads into the pot of 18-7 for 4,500.
Even JC has a pair and a straight draw here. We'll see how Bill decides to play his bottom two pair here. I'm more likely to just call in position here and see what comes off and how my opponent plays it. Bill raising a number of flops.
You and Bill play differently.
Just slightly. But I don't mind the raise here. I mean, his hand is obviously strong enough for a raise.
Well, it gets it down to heads up as Tran mucks the 2-8s, and Jeff just calls.
Very good card here on the turn for Bill. I expect him to keep firing.
Action on Jeff first.
Check the Hodor.
And he checks it.
Hodor.
And Bill checks behind.
Very, very strange check there. And a terrible card for both players comes off.
JC would have made a jack-high straight if he had been able to continue, which of course he wasn't.
Jeff makes a small bet on the river.
And snap call from Bill.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah, that was a very weird river play. I think that Jeff should really just check that hand on the river.
I didn't love my spot. That's a very perky flop.
Yeah, it's super perky. That's got my name written all over it. My edge would be unpredictable. I'd make a couple of squirrely calls, a couple out of position, play some cards that you wouldn't expect me to have. When a flop comes there, usually they don't believe me, so they pay me off.
Bill likes to keep it funky.
Yeah, some self-awareness there from Bill. He understands his strengths and he understands how to exploit them. Could come in handy for him later on.
Well, Bill Perkins' approach to poker, a little bit different than most, kind of a double-edged sword, and that's part of why he finds himself in sticky situations from time to time on the felt.
Yeah, but that's why he has Jeff Gross as his poker coach to help him get out of those spots.
Indeed he does. As we get back to action at the feature table, action on Matt Glantz in the small blind. Glantz with pocket queens here.
I think I'm a good poker player because I can adapt to pretty much any situation. I wouldn't say that I have the best fundamentals or the best knowledge of any one game or a particular situation, but when it comes to any kind of spot in a poker game, I kind of figure out what the best alternative, what best move is to do, and pretty much go from there, and I'm always adjusting.
You know, Matt Glantz is really a good candidate for one of the best overall poker players in the world. Very, very skilled at all the poker games, not just No Limit Hold'em.
Yeah, high-stakes cash game mixed player from the East Coast. His 3-bet with a couple of queens makes quick work of king-queen offsuit, and then he decides to huck some chips at Dan Perper.
Sorry, Dan. I shouldn't. He has 200 change. I threw it to him. It's a very bad shot, though.
You hit him in the head.
I'm vicious.
3-bet Jason, he folds, you throw chips
Jason's
at
an
him.
athlete. He's supposed to catch it.
I didn't even see it.
Yeah, think fast, bro.
And the lights.
Let's get over to the outer table, where Dan Shack has moved his entire stack into the middle against Philip Gruesome on the board of Ace-King-10. Run out no good for Dan Shack, and he dishes out a few handshakes before making his way out of the building. Down to 13 players now. Philip Grissom inheriting the rest of Dan Shack's stack. He actually won the $50,000 high roller rebuy event at the 2013 World Series of Poker, good for $863,000 and change. As we come back to the feature table, where Isaac Haxton finds himself heads up in a pot against Jeff Gross. The board currently reads Queen, 7, Ace, Ace.
So Jeff raised pre-flop and then checked pair of queens with a king kicker after Ike had checked in position. Ike out of position led on the turn, which was another ace. Ike with just a gut shot straight draw, but I think he was picking up that Jeff probably didn't have a very strong hand since he didn't bet the flop. Jeff not going anywhere with his pair of queens, and we'll have to see what happens on the river.
Yeah, betting a call of 10,500, a little over 36 in the middle, and the river card, not a 10. That's what Ike was hoping for. Instead, it's a third diamond out there. And Haxton's reaching for chips.
So, you know, Ike is the type of player, when he has equity and takes a shot at a pot, he usually follows through on the river, especially if a card like the 8 of diamonds, which makes a reasonable draw on the flop, come through. Even though Ike doesn't have diamonds, he can easily represent a flush here, or really any decent ace.
Well, he's not giving Jeff credit for an ace or diamonds, considering that Jeff checked back on the flop, which is obviously factoring into this decision, and now Gross is in a pinch.
Jeff here with the king of diamonds can kind of discount a few flushes from Ike's range. He just has to try to figure out how often he thinks Ike is bluffing here. I think Ike, one of the things that separates him from some of the other pros is that he's actually bluffing in these types of situations more than most players and gets people to fold these medium strength hands like Jeff just did there with king queen.
I just can't think what you think I have there.
If you have a bad ace or a queen.
And Ike spot on with his read there.
Yeah, so exactly, yeah, one of those two.
Jeff's wondering if his cards have backs on them. Meanwhile, over at the outer table, Ace 9-10 rainbow board, Eric Seidel finds himself all in with 5-6 suited. And not looking good as the turn leaves him drawing dead. Joseph Chong dispatches the Hall of Famer, who is heading into the South Florida Sunshine, 100K lighter in the pocket.
Jeff Gross took a huge prop bet from Bill Perkins. It involves a tattoo and a lot of money. Log on to ClubWPT.com and hear what Jeff told us in the Alpha 8 Clip of the Week. ClubWPT.com. Fun, exciting poker you can play for free.
With Eric Seidel's elimination just before the break, we are now down to 12 players.
With 7 at our feature table and 5 at the outer table, we've moved 1 player to balance the tables.
And that was Matt Glantz, who was all in pre-flop with pocket jacks against aces and tens, and has flopped a set of jacks. That's exactly how you want to script it, isn't it?
It's a pretty good flop there for pocket jacks.
He fills up on the turn, still looking to dodge an ace, and he does, making quick work of Brandon Steven. Brandon's probably thinking, you just got here, man, and you're going to bust me?
Yeah, huge pot there for Matt Glantz.
Always hard to go home busting with aces. Glantz tripling up there. Philip Gruesome had both players covered, so he emerges relatively unscathed as we get back to the feature table. Action is on Isaac Haxton after a fold from Jason Mercier. Haxton with 10-9 offsuit. Blinds and antes have gone up to 1,500 and 3,000. Ante is 500. Haxton makes it 6,500 to go, and Jeff Gross looks at a hard 12. Boxcars.
9-10 offsuit might seem like a relatively weak hand, but they're only 6-handed, and Mercier had already folded. So Ike raising there with 9-10 is actually pretty normal. Jeff calling with 2 6s on the button is completely standard.
Ike with about 40 big blinds to start the hand, and he'll end up heads up with Jeff heading to the flop. And that flop is 10-10 deuce. Easy game.
Yeah, and this is the type of board where I'd expect Ike to just bet 3 times and try to get his stack in. It's very deceptive. 2 10s on the board and him holding one of them, and even the other card being as low as a deuce.
Well, the first bullet is a 10,500 caliber. Jeff with 2 6s. Definitely not folding.
Jeff can't really consider folding at all. He could consider raising, but the vast majority of pros in a situation like this, in position with a pocket pair, elect just to call.
And that's exactly what he did as a 4 hits the turn, another undercard to the 6s.
And it also brings him back to a flush draw. I expect Ike to bet here, but he decides to check and play it a little tricky.
And Gross checks back, and a jack hits the river.
Ike might have been planning to try to check raise the turn, but instead I think he'll go for a relatively decent-sized bet here on the river.
And with 41.5 out there, Ike fires 38,000, almost a full-size pot bet.
Yeah, that was a little larger than I expected.
Damn, dude, you're tough.
And there might be some history here since we saw Jeff and Ike play a hand earlier and Jeff fold on the river. He might be less willing to fold on the river again to the same player.
And we heard Jeff say, dang, dude, you're tough.
Yeah, Ike is really one of the toughest players around. And Jeff knows that Ike could be bluffing here, but unfortunately for him, if he does call, he's not going to like what he sees.
Which he does. Surprise.
Nice hand.
Jeff might have been a little bit tired of folding on the river. He might have just overestimated Ike's bluffing frequency, or maybe not, just in this case, Ike had it. It's tough to tell. It's a very difficult spot there for Jeff. Decided to go with it, but unfortunately, Ike did have 3 10s.
I was going to lay it down.
Yeah, he should have called with the king-queen against Ike's king-jack earlier, and he should have laid down here. Just wrong decisions, wrong times.
And sometimes just looking at the results is tough to tell whether, you know, a player is playing well or not. Sometimes they're just getting unlucky and running into certain hands from their opponents. I think it's reasonable for Jeff to call there, but it's really tough to tell.
Well, Gross starts this hand with 170,000 and change, and he has put 6,000 of it out there with ace-10 offsuit.
It's like you are not afraid.
Blinds are at 1,500 and 3,000, so 6K is the min raise right now. Antes are at 500. Daniel Perper has ace-jack suited. And he is going to ship it. 23,000 total.
Dan Perper very short stacked here, just under 8 big blinds. Pretty easy all in with ace-jack suited, but he does run into the ace-queen of Jason Mercier, who does not fold.
He just calls, and another ace-jack suited, this time for Isaac Haxton, but he's got a razor, an all-inner, and a cold caller in front of him, so he's going to lay it down.
Good disciplined fold there by Ike.
Oh, this is awkward.
4 hands and 4 aces.
All right, Jason, if I hadn't just spewed off 40 on that river, I might play with you, but I think you got like either me dominate or a pair, yeah.
Perper just not able to get anything going throughout this tournament.
I had ace-10.
Which includes 2 bullets.
And I had ace-jack.
And I was like, oh man, this is, I don't feel like I'm even gonna get this. And you start tanking, I was like, oh god.
Was in a good spot to try to double up, but then ran into Jason Mercier behind him, who had ace-queen.
And the flop, King, Queen, 9. Not over for Daniel Perper, despite Mercier's having the better hand right now. He's looking for a 10 to make Broadway.
Actually has 4 outs instead of the 3 he had before the flop. He needs any 10 to make a straight.
Well, 6 isn't going to cut it, and now he's got 1 pull, add a 10 to make Broadway and stay alive.
Get some.
That's the face of a man whispering quietly, 10, 10, 10. Instead, it's a 7. Daniel Perper has been eliminated.
Knew that was going to happen.
And that's never a good feeling when you bust, having put 2 bullets in.
First time I've had a playable hand in 6 hours, and then...
Unfortunate day for Daniel Perper.
Is that to induce me, or you just want to, I mean, if I ship it, you...
I don't know, man. I was just hoping everybody folded.
Hoping you didn't have to make any more decisions.
Yeah.
Alpha 8 is brought to you by ClubWPT.com. Fun, exciting poker you can play for free.
Welcome back to the world's most exclusive poker room, WPT Alpha 8. Tonight's event is brought to you by the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in South Florida. Action at the feature table is in full gear, so let's get to Ali and Olivier up in the ClubWPT.com skybox.
We'll get a look at the current chip counts. Jason Mercier, the big stack. Jeff Gross sitting on the short one.
We're now down to 10 players with 5 at our feature table and 5 at our outer table. So you might see players opening up and playing a slightly wider range than before.
Well, you don't need a wide range to get involved with pocket aces, which is exactly what Bill Perkins has right now.
Yeah, I think I might play pocket aces no matter how many players are at the table.
And he makes it 7,000 to go. That's 2.5x with the blinds at 1,500 and 3,000. Ante is 500. Mercier with the easy fold. And now to Isaac Haxton on the button with ace-jack suited.
Yeah, Ike has a couple options here. I think he could very easily 3-bet. He decides to just call, which I actually prefer. His hand is suited and plays well in a number of different flops. He's in position, so he doesn't mind adding a player or 2 to the field.
Both blinds fold, and it's Bill and Isaac heading heads up to the flop. 6-10-9 with a couple of diamonds.
Ike flops a pretty big hand here with the nut flush draw.
2 aces still best. 21,000 in the middle.
This is a pretty good flop for Bill. Not the best flop, but definitely worth at least 1 or 2 bets.
Perkins coming up with a number. 8,500.
Ike again with the option of either calling or raising with his very big draw. And I like in position just calling here, seeing what comes off.
And that's a troublesome card potentially for Haxton. He now has jacks with the nut flush draw.
Yeah,
certainly he is drawing to beat aces, but is still behind.
He's definitely not going anywhere now. And Bill makes another bet on the turn.
12,500 this time. Haxton calls the 12-5, pot up to 63 even. And here comes the river. Haxton with a lot of outs, and a diamond is one of them. Awful river card for Perkins.
Just terrible for Perkins. Looks like he's reaching for chips, but I don't like betting here. His hand is just not good enough to put any more chips in this pot. Obviously now Ike is going to raise this bet, and hopefully Bill will be able to get away with just one pair here. But I think Bill could have gotten away with just checking the river and saving some chips.
Yeah, it looks like Perkins may have lit a match to 15K. Really hard to justify betting with that board texture on the end.
Sometimes it's just tough psychologically when you have two aces in your hand to accept the fact that maybe you've lost a hand.
And of course, here's the big raise from Haxton, the 67 total.
Now, obviously, Bill doesn't beat anything. Any 8 or king is a straight, 2 diamonds is a flush, and he does find a fold. So at the river does make the good decision finally.
Oh my God, that is not the best. Wow.
Not the best hand.
Not the best board.
And Perkins gives Haxton a look at the 2 aces.
Wow, it just got worse and worse.
It just got worse. I should have just opened shoves on the flop.
Might have lost.
That would have been interesting.
Wow, Perky gets the 1s. I had an ace, too.
I know he called me with some ridiculous hand.
Over at the outer table, Philip Gruesome has open-raised all in with ace-7 offsuit. Matt Glantz has made the call with queen-9 suited, and we head to the flop. Philip, his tournament life at stake, and it's a 9-high board. Glantz now has the best hand. Philip is hoping for an ace to stay alive. Turn card doesn't connect, and he has 3 outs once. 4 of hearts is not one of them, and that is the end of the day for Philip Gruesome. Auf Wiedersehen, my friend.
Nice run for Matt Glantz here at the outer table.
Philip saying his goodbyes to his friends in the high-stakes community.
Philip looking a little less dejected than some of the other past bust-outs. I think he's more used to these stakes and the variance that comes with live tournaments.
Either that or the fact that he's exchanging British pounds for U.S. dollars softens the blow. He currently lives in London, and he's getting a good exchange rate, isn't he?
You know that? Back-to-back FTs, kid.
He comes over to the feature table to say goodbye to his friends there as well.
And they are down to 9 players, so they will consolidate into 1 table. Looking for high roller excitement without the high roller risk?
Then go to clubwpt.com and sign up for our Alpha 8 High Roller Play Chip tournaments for a chance to be crowned champion.
There's a seat waiting for you right now at clubwpt.com.
Welcome back to the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino here in South Florida for the continuation of our inaugural WPT Alpha 8 event, where the room has shrunk a little bit. We're down to 1 table.
There's also been a redraw, so all the players have new seats, and we've been joined by 3 strong pros, Joseph Chong, Steven Silverman, and Daniel Alayi.
Matt Glantz, after taking a break from the feature table and moving over to the outer table, he's gone from short stack to chip leader.
It's been a good run for Matt.
Nice little shift out there. And there's a look at the current chip counts. As we mentioned, Matt Glantz, the chip leader. And we pick up the action at the feature table with the blinds at 2 and 4,000, ante at 500. Pocket deuces for Jason Mercier, and he pitches it.
Wow, that's surprising. I can't see myself folding deuces there with no real short stack. Maybe I should re-look at my under-the-gun range now that I see Jason folded.
Yeah, stop being such a fish cake, Olivier. Ace-10 offsuit for Bill Perkins, folded around to him, and he makes it 10K to go.
Silverman with pretty easy call on the button with pocket 5s.
No need to re-raise?
No, his hand is not strong enough to re-raise, and he's in position looking to flop a set and win a big pot.
Of course, you do invite the squeeze whenever you smooth call on the button in a spot like this. And it's not really a squeeze, but J.C. Tran is most certainly going to be playing back with pocket kings.
Yeah, J.C. looking to 3-bet and get as many chips as possible into the pot before the flop with his monster pair.
27,000 total. Bill Perkins bows out, and it's 17K for Silverman to call.
Good disciplined fold there by Bill. I think Steve, if he was out of position to JC, might consider folding this hand, but starting the hand with just over 40 big blinds, I can see Steve wanting to take a chance to flop a set and potentially double up here against JC.
And that's what he does. Steve hails from the Washington, D.C. area and has flopped a set of 5s, sucking out against those 2 kings.
Steve and I used to actually play heads up online quite a bit when he was first starting out. Very tough opponent.
Meanwhile, J.C. Tran, post-flop, has fired 38,000.
That's actually a pretty big bet on the flop here. Steve, having flopped middle set, is just loving the situation, looking almost definitely to double up here.
All in.
He says all in.
So sick. Give me an exact count. Put him on a small pair, too.
I think it'll be very difficult for JC to get away. His instincts seem to know that he could potentially be beat, but I think his hand is too strong and Steve doesn't have enough chips to get JC to actually fold.
Yeah, 143,500 total. And JC calls the balance, and Steve gives him the bad news.
And I like that Steve didn't try to play it all tricky and make a small raise. He just put his chips in the middle. He hoped JC had a big pair, and if he did, didn't expect him to fold it.
I'm gonna suck out.
He was right and looks to double up here with a set of fives.
Well, let's see if he can avoid a king. So far, so good on the turn, but that 8 changes things.
It actually increases chop outs, and so if any of the 7s come, they would chop with a straight on the board, but the river's an ace, and Steve Silverman does double up with his pair of 5s.
That's not how JC had it in his head with 2 kings.
Yeah, I don't think either player really did anything wrong there. Just one of those unavoidable spots where Steve took a chance, flopped the set, and was able to double up.
Total pot was over 357,000.
If I shove the flop, you call?
The flop?
Yeah. No, pre-flop.
With 5s?
Yeah.
No. But could you beat kings?
At the river. On the river.
Action is on Jeff with pocket 7s. Jeff starting the hand with just about 17 big blinds.
He moves all in.
Jeff decides to move all in here.
Very easy.
Jeff under the gun, 9-handed here.
Like 70? 70 exactly, yeah.
All in with 2 7s.
69,500 to call. Action over to Joseph Chong, and with ace-queen offsuit, he is going over the top and all in, 174,500 total.
Yeah, Joe's stack is such that it doesn't really matter if he calls or raises all in. He's basically committed for the rest of his stack if he puts in the 70,000 that Jeff Gross has put in the middle. Almost 18 big blinds and his tournament life at risk.
Oh, that's a good start. That's not gonna do it.
Show me ace-king, Joe.
And you hear Gross say, show me ace-king, Joe. Ace-queen, pretty much the same thing. Of course, Chong either had an over pair or 2 over cards.
Good luck, brother. It's going to a good guy if you get it. Thanks, appreciate that.
And we see from the stats that Joe is actually a small favorite with ace-queen offsuit, which is not typically the case. The reason here is that our statisticians have actually included all of the folded cards from the other players. Great flop there for pocket 7s, though.
I wish I had ace-king there. Yeah, I know, right?
Jeff looking to avoid an ace or a queen on the river.
Here's the river.
And that river card is a 10. Jeff Gross stays alive.
You survived.
Thanks. That's an awkward spot, too, with 7s. Under the gun, 9-handed. You know? I almost just raised, and I was like, I can't raise full. I gotta just ship it. I'm gonna try to get a race or take it out.
Action continues in a moment.
My family are pretty used to the idea of me playing poker for big money at this point. I've been doing it for a few years, and they get it that this is what I do for a living, and they're not too stressed about it.
They just know it's part of the job, and they support me as I go.
They think it's a little crazy, but they also think it's fantastic.
I mean, my parents love poker. My dad, that's one of his favorite hobbies, and he likes following along, so they're really supportive.
My mom likes to follow along and to calculate how much I'm winning or how much what my stake is in the tournament.
I just try not to tell my mom. She would have a heart attack, so I don't tell them anything.
I like that. Chong is a good son. Why would you want to kill your mom by telling her you bought in $100,000 to a poker event? That's how my mom would feel about it. As we pick up the action here, you see the current chip counts. Matt Glantz still the big stack. Bill Perkins on the short one. Ace-Jack offsuit for Steven Silverman, who makes it 10,000 to go, and it's folded around to Matt Glantz.
Matt makes a somewhat tight fold with 7-6 of hearts on the button.
Ace-9 suited for Isaac Haxton in the big blind.
Definitely not going to fold this hand from the big blinds, especially to a min raise.
Yeah, blinds are at 2,500 and 5,000 with a 500 chip ante. And Ike defends.
It's going to be tough to beat the dominating ace-jack of Steve Silverman, though.
Well, here comes the flop. Queen-9 deuce. And Haxton has the best hand now with a pair of 9s.
Yeah, Ike checks, keeping in rhythm, checking to the pre-flop aggressor. See if Steve puts a continuation bet out or not.
Well, why would he and why wouldn't he?
Well, the queen and the 9 are definitely a combination of cards that are going to help a lot of Ike's defending range. Hands like king 10, king jack, king queen, jack 10. All these hands make some sort of hand here. Steve does decide to c-bet, and Ike quickly calls with mid-pair, a backdoor flush draw.
15,000 a man into the pot, and the turn is a 10 of diamonds. That makes things look a little better for Silverman.
It's a very interesting card. It gives Steve an open-ended straight draw, and even if another diamond comes on the river, Steve with the ace of diamonds might represent a flush. And for Ike, the 10 normally hits a big part of his range, giving him some sort of 2-pair or pair plus straight draw or even a straight. In this particular case, it's actually a terrible card for him because he just has an ace with his 9.
Now, Silverman doesn't know that, but nonetheless, he fires 37,000 at the turn with the open ender, or the up and down straight draw.
Yeah, very strong turn bet there by Steve, and pretty easy fold with just ace-9 by Ike.
Well, Silverman's aggression being paid off.
I think my strengths involve just being able to know what pieces to put together. It's not often just thinking I should do this or this, but there's various factors to consider, and it's kind of like doing a math problem.
Silverman actually retired in 2010 at the ripe old age of 22, actually dropping out of college in 2007 to turn pro. I'm not on that program.
Yeah, well, Steve made a decision to come back a year or two ago, and it looks like a good decision. He's had a lot of very good results. Steve, one of the more deliberate theoretical players, a very strong player.
Sort of Haxton-ish in that way, as we see action folded around to Ike, who has ace-8 suited this time.
Yeah, nobody is quite as Haxton-ish as Ike. He really is in a category by himself. Strong hand for him on the button with ace-8 of hearts.
All in. How much is it?
All in.
Bill Perkins, short stacked here, decides to go all in with his raggedy ace.
It's probably like 73,000.
72,000 more for Isaac to call, and he makes that call and will be pleased to see himself in a dominating position.
Always in a situation against him too. Who's like probably
Ace
like
or 5. Go ahead and just get your wheelbarrow.
I got to turn it over.
Bill could have considered just calling the min-raise, but I think going all in was perfectly reasonable. Just a little bit unlucky that Ike had such a strong hand and is in dire shape to stay alive here.
Well, the flop will help bring things into focus as you see each player eagerly looking on, and it's a queen and a couple of 10s on the board.
And the chances of them tying have just jumped over 60% with any card above an 8 chopping the pot.
Is it hard not to chop?
Yeah, I need two cards under an 8, or to hit the 8. That works pretty well.
That's a tough card for Bill to see. Now he only chops with an ace or a queen and cannot win the pot outright.
And the river is a 3, spelling the end of the road for Bill Perkins.
Yeah, Bill Perkins, very popular among the pros, become almost a regular in these big buy-in events, actually finishing 3rd in the 100K at the World Series for just under $2 million. Though Bill doesn't play poker all day, every day like some of these pros, he's a strong player in his own right and can certainly hold his own.
Well, there you have it. The poker gods have spoken and the Alpha 8 have been chosen. Preparations for the official final table of WPT Alpha 8 Florida are underway. So join us next time as the fight for first place prize continues. For Ali Najad and Olivier Bousquet, I'm Lynn Gilmartin. Good night.